Corey Coleman here. I know it's kind of weird seeing me this early in the day, but you know, if you do, it's for something special, usually for a special guest. And that's who we have today. A lot of you viewers out there, you know who's here today. You've been sending me all kind of questions about him. You've been telling me you're excited to see him. And I want everybody out there to welcome on Double Toasted, Mr. Jhonen Vasquez. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
I thought I scared you off at first. Jhonen went and saw the site, you know, just to make sure we were legit before he got on here. And he looked at me and he's like, damn, y'all talked about Angry Birds 2 for a long ass time. He said, y'all went on for about an hour.
I have full respect for that. I think it's funny talking about Angry Birds 2 and there was moments where your faces were so serious too. Like you were breaking those birds down.
Oh man, we no matter what we're talking about, we get serious and deep with it. Nothing is below us, man. We are very humbled to be here. Before we get started, let me go ahead and, because we get some people who watch sometimes who, you know, they might not be familiar with everything that we're talking about at the moment. And for the folks that do know who we're talking to and what we're talking about, Jhonen is, of course, the creator of Invader Zim, also a very successful comic book artist, illustrator, very successful writer. His movie, which this frame is taken on from right here, Invader Zim Enter the Florpus. It was just released on Netflix last week. I watched it, had a lot of fun with it. I actually have from years ago, man, and this is funny too because I know you're very popular in the goth world. I had a very close goth friend at the time, and for my birthday, he got me the box set of the first season of Invader Zim.
I hear that thing a lot. People sort of spread it, kind of like pod people. Like they just they see someone that they think should be into a thing, and then they just sort of like spread it.
When I started watching Invader Zim, I was probably out of the age demographic for it, but that's the cool thing about just your work in general, and is that it appeals to a wide range of people of different ages.
Yeah, I mean, it was originally intended for for kids, but I think people just sort of pick up on the feel of the thing more than like its intention. Like I made it kind of just for a kind of person, not so much an age group, and it's just people who are into that sort of thing, which I've always been a big fan of just weirder, more personal feeling stuff. And I don't know, I love that such a wide range of people are into the show.
First of all, congratulations on all the success that you've had with everything. Like I said, real honor to have you here. If
Thank you.
Could take a moment to just explain to the people, I've already talked about, you know, a little bit about your background, but a lot of people, again, they know what Invader Zim is, but for those who don't, I'll just give them just a really brief rundown. That is
okay.
Zim that you see losing his damn mind right here, but this is the character Zim. Zim comes from planet Earth, and he's here to conquer Earth. He thinks he's on a serious mission for his planet, but really people just don't like his ass. They just happy to get rid of him, and when he gets here, he pretty much has everybody fooled except for his neighbor, who is a kid that's a conspiracy freak. No one trusts this kid or believes anything he has to say, even though in this particular case, he's right. There is an alien living next door. The kid's name is Dib. And the reason why a lot of people don't know about the alien, because the alien actually is able to disguise himself as another middle school kid. The dog is dressed up like a robot, or the robot is dressed up like a dog, rather. And everybody thinks that Dib is crazy. And that brings us up to this point right here where we are, where after all these years, Dib has not given up on trying to expose Zim for what he is, to the point where he sat in a chair for years trying to figure this out. People say that he is more chair than man at this point.
Zim! Move along, hideous goblin. I'm posing dramatically for when the Dib shows up.
I am Dib.
What? I've been expecting you, Dib!
So as you can see, kids loved it, scared the hell out of parents. And that's one of the things I want to ask you. We can just kind of jump right into what, probably is your most mainstream property. So Invader Zim ran on Nickelodeon from I believe March 2001 to December, March 2001 to December 2002. Now, I've heard so many different things, and I'm sure if I just look it up, I can find it. But why do that when I have the man here himself to tell me? I've heard so many rumors to why it was not on Nickelodeon after that. Heard things from it was canceled because of low ratings. You didn't like censorship that was probably going to start happening with your humor. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. Also, I heard that what I just joked around with, which I was kind of serious, that the show just kind of worried and scared parents, and they kind of pressured Nickelodeon into pulling it. So, I mean, I don't know if all these things are kind of a factor, or if there's one truth right there. But I mean, can you could perhaps tell us what went on with that?
By this point, I've heard so much stuff that I love hearing all the different theories. I don't know what the answer is. Like, I wasn't there in any of the meetings where they decided this is why we're gonna cancel the show. But I like to think that they're all kind of true.
Yeah.
I love the idea of parents being so terrified that they're calling up Nickelodeon saying, "Stop it! Take it off!" I love that image. If my take on it is, even if it was, making parents shit themselves, and if it was making, kids into, lunatics or whatever, if the ratings were there, I don't think it would have mattered. I don't think any of that would have mattered. I think it just came down to ratings. It just wasn't performing like these other shows that Nickelodeon had that were, I think, a little easier to digest or a little less nonstop screaming. I don't know what the exact reason is, but I think it's kind of fun that no one knows, and I wish I had like some definitive answer. They never told me, well, we're canceling it because, we don't like your face or anything like that. It was just, it was just, they're pulling the plug, and that was it. I didn't question it. At the time, I didn't ask, why are you doing this to us? It sucked because we had a whole crew,
Mm-hmm.
this was their livelihoods for a while, but it wasn't an easy show to make.
A lot of dark humor made it into the show. I remember. And it was funny. I don't think it's anything that wouldn't that would disturb kids too much. I remember watching one show where
well, maybe.
Because I remember watching one show where Zim was trying to turn the DNA of Dib into baloney. And
Polonius Maximus.
Yeah, exactly. And they had the little subtle things in there that. You're right. Where they weren't exactly pleasant, but they were funny. Like in this scene where Dip's sister comes in, and it's kind of a small little joke. No attention is being brought to it, but she walks into the room, and when she walks by Dib, whose head is getting kind of inflated because he's starting to turn into baloney, she comes by and she just takes a chunk out of his head and actually eats it.
The dogs! After my juicy meat body of bologna meat!
I can see how, parents could look at that and be like, there's not a whole lot of friendly things going on. There's no big positive message, which is what I like. I don't want to be told anything. I want to just see weird shit, How hard was it if it was difficult to get that kind of humor past the people at Nickelodeon? Was that always a struggle? Or did they trust you?
I think there was a certain amount of trust, and then as the show was not performing the way that they wanted it to, then they were scrutinizing it a lot more, trying to figure out how to retool it, how to fix it. And I think the go-to culprits were always the humor, the style of humor, and the tone. That didn't always play its hand as to being, this is for kids, it's okay. Like, I liked saying it's not okay. Doesn't mean that it's not okay, but like outright saying, don't worry, guys. It's going to be okay. That baloney idea has been in my mind for a long time. I used to have this I used to imagine what it would be like if you had to go through your day as baloney. Like, for 24 hours, your flesh just becomes baloney. And so, and if you've got like a wiener or whatever, like a hot dog, and you kind of pull, like you snap it, it breaks. And I just thought, what if you like bend your elbows so much that you start breaking, and then after those 24 hours, you go back to being normal human flesh, but you're all messed up now because you were baloney and you're all broken and split open. That's just a thing that I used to think about a lot. I don't know if it was because I thought it was going to happen to me, but it made it into that story. It made it into that episode.
I'm thinking because you were probably a fucked up kid is what happened.
I think this is the sort of shit that you just have to think about for when it happens in real life. And
you got to be prepared when you turn to baloney, man.
And so but making that episode, like, it's funny because it's so stupid. It's such a like stupid take on, David Cronenberg's The Fly. And except I don't know if it's better or worse to turn into a fly or to turn into baloney, but when you think about it, like turning into baloney would be horrifying.
And by the way, I'm going to tell you, that's going to kind of me up tonight. I'm going to be sleeping and be like, will I want to be a fly or some baloney? Things I shouldn't even be thinking about. Thanks for putting it in my head, man.
I'd rather be a fly or baloney. I mean, you know what? I think it just comes from. I'm trying to think of other like something similar, and I'm thinking of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Turning into a blueberry. Like, is she actually a blueberry? That, like, as a kid, that stuff really stuck with me. I was fascinated. Like, it was a kid's movie, but this girl turns into a blueberry, and then these little guys just roll her away, and you never see her again. And so what's happening back there? What is she going through? Does it hurt being juiced?
Correct me if I got this wrong, but I think the thing that kind of really started your career or got you going in this direction, even though I'm sure you were drawn all your life, 1995, you had the comic strip Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, which was very mature humor. I mean, I tell the people, this is about a guy named Johnny who's trying to find the meaning of life while violently and horrendously ending everybody else's. And in 2002, you did a book, Everything Can Be Beaten. I mean, I think you worked on this book, right?
Yeah, with my friend Brad Canby.
Yeah, which was about a guy who gets tired of beating kittens. So right off the bat, we already in the place. He gets tired of beating kittens and goes on to just realizing, well, I can beat other things to death if I want to.
Yeah, it's about getting out there in the world, broadening your horizon,
exploring, not limiting yourself. How do you go from that kind of material to transitioning into a kid's show?
It wasn't really that hard. I get asked that a lot. I get asked, how do I make the jump from this to this? And tonally, I don't think the stuff is that different. Zim is very much a thing of, from my head. And I think you can hopefully get a sense of that, if you know my other stuff. It just, no one's running around murdering people, not explicitly anyhow. But I mean, I always imagine that some of this stuff you just don't come back from in Zim, but it's happening off screen.
You don't see it, yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of going to like a kid's show, it was not a big jump for me. I always think that it's funny when people ask, it's so weird that I did this and then I did this. And I'm like, why is that weird? I'm a person. Like, do you only like one thing? Do you only do one kind of thing? Like, I grew up loving kids shows. I grew up watching all kinds of stuff, horror movies. I mean, I've maybe watched a lot more horror than a lot of kids, but I also watched the Disney movies, and I watched all the G.I. Joes and Inspector Gadgets and all the cute little bits and pieces. I watched Muppet Babies, and I watched all this stuff growing up, and I liked it for the characters. I liked it for the animation. Even as a kid, I could always tell, like, that's well animated. I didn't have the words for it. I didn't know how this stuff was really done. But, the offer to do my own animated series, even if it was a kid's animated series, it didn't it wasn't a weird proposition for me. It was just like, hell yeah, I'll do that. It makes me think that people are just assuming that when I'm not making bloody horror comics, I am just sitting around thinking about blood and horror, which, that's maybe like 50% of my day. But then there's
Yeah, you ain't fooling anybody. Come on, man. If I can elaborate on why I think people see this, I mean, look, man, you're an extremely talented guy, and you've had the great fortune of being able to just work in all these different areas. And a lot of people don't experience that. I look at your background, and again, I see where you've been able to make all these transitions, like comics. You've done stuff with Marvel and DC. I'm looking at a comic that sold very well for you, or sold very well for Marvel, which is one of the Strange Tales with MODOK in there. Yeah. Which is I've read some of that. It's actually very funny, man. And you've been able to get by as an illustrator too. So you've had all these things that you were able to do. So I think when people ask you these questions, while it's completely normal and you're used to it, it comes from a place of admiration, because a lot of people just they don't have the good fortune of being able to transition in so many different areas.
I'm always incredibly grateful to be able to do what I do and how I want to do it. I mean, the trade-off for that is I don't really get to do a whole lot. This stuff comes up not all that frequently, just because it throws extra friction into the process when you're trying to do something very specific. But to be able to do any of what I do it's kind of freakish.
You're also very lucky to have this unique art style that does set you aside, where even the people who might not even like it or get it or whatever, they can't stop looking at it. They're drawn to it. I know that I love your art style, man. I love I've looked at some of the different things that you've done. Like with your comics and whatnot. That you definitely have this thing where there's a lot of appeal in it for me, where I love from Zim to the other things that you've done. I love the forced perspective. I love the distorted angles. That's something that you did right there for BioShock. I've seen that before. I love that illustration, man. I know for Disney, what was it that you did? It was it the Randy Cunningham? Yeah, there it is. Randy Cunningham, 9th grade ninja. You get to go and do your styles for different things. And while I'm on the subject, you can see hints of what you're doing in everything that you do. Sometimes it's more, skewed towards adults. Sometimes it's more for kids. Do you find yourself being challenged whenever you have to do this for a different audience?
No. It's all the same audience to me. Like I said before, I don't switch gears for the most part. I'm aware that while I'm working on stuff for kids, I'm aware of certain stuff that I'm just not gonna do. But if the personality comes through, that's kind of really all that matters to me. Like for Randy Cunningham, I just did character designs. They had a show already. They had character designs, but they wanted to make them look a little bit more. I guess they wanted to stylize them a little bit more, have them being just something a little different.
Yeah.
And so I just went through and redid the main cast, and that was pretty much my involvement with it. That was really weird to see the show come out and go, "Oh God, that's me," but it's not me. Like it's something wearing me, but my brain isn't in there. And that was one of the first times that I'd ever seen anything like that I had ever just helped out on something. That was pretty cool to do, because that job came up during development hell on some other thing of mine that I didn't know if it would ever see the light of day. So working on Randy Cunningham was pretty cool, because I'm like, this is getting made and I'm going to be able to see this. And I did. And it was the weirdest feeling to see something removed from me, you know, but I was still associated with it just through the visuals. Which was interesting. It was kind of liberating, because if the show sucks, people are like, "Oh, but it looks okay." Or, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. So, I forgot, dude. I even worked on it.
I like the way you sit up there just bullshitting through, and you're like, "Man, I didn't even remember that shit." Of course, got to ask you, as any kind of successful artist who, again, has developed their own unique style, influential style. What was it like growing up, man? Did you draw all your life? What were some of the influences that you had when you were growing up?
I drew my whole life. I started out drawing a combination of dinosaurs and Giger's Alien. My sister took me to go see Alien when, God, I was tiny.
Okay, now we're starting to explain a lot right here then.
Yeah, when it was in theaters. When it was in theaters, I don't know if it was like first run or second run theaters or what, but so I must have been around 6 or 7 when I saw Alien.
Okay, let me ask you, if you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 44.
44? Let me tell you something, man. If you saw that in the theaters, because I'm 47, I was 6 years old when that came out. So somebody brought your ass in there when you were a toddler. Okay. That's why your mind is so messed up, man.
No. What it did is, like, I knew it was scary, and I knew, but I was obsessed for years, a good deal of my life after that. When I was a little kid, my dad would take us to my brother's, family friend, my brother's godfather, and his son had the Making of Alien book. And every time I went, I was just this huge little pain in the ass, just constantly saying, "Can I see the book? Can I look at the book?" And I just was obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. And there was that page. It was a 2-page spread of John Hurt, Kane in the movie, with the Thing. He's just dead on the dining table, and the little chest bursters coming out of him. And I just would stare at that page, and just trying to understand what I was looking at. There was just this weird split between me knowing that it was fake and that people made this. They made this. People's jobs were dedicated to making this horrible, amazing, otherworldly thing. And then, you're still a kid, so it's kind of real to you. And I just thought, what is that like? What does it feel like to have this thing in you? The idea of something that doesn't care about you as a person, but it's just using you as a home for a little while, and it explodes out of you. I was obsessed.
This has been great, man. Talking to you. It's been a wonderful discussion. You've had.
Thank you.
No, you've had a lot of. And I'm sure the people that are watching, they're not disappointed. I mean, I think they've learned more about you than they thought they ever would watching this. Even the people that kind of follow you. So, again, thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I have enjoyed our conversation.